Hello and welcome to Season 5, Episode 6 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicarta. I'm Carl Robinson, CEO and co-founder of Logicarta, and I'm joined today, as you may well have come to expect, by Principal Cloud Engineer and Karate aficionado, John Goodall. How are you doing today, John? And I'm just mentioning the karate again because obviously you've had a big karate weekend, so I know that regular listeners know about your karate pastimes, but I'm sure you're going to share something with us about your weekend's antics.
Yeah, everything hurts. Everything hurts. I went to a seminar, which it's sort of somewhere between a tournament and a training and various other things. It's a big learning experience, which is kind of part of the deal, right? You sign up to be a lifelong student and a lifelong student of pain, I think. So I went to a kumite seminar. Kumite, for the uninitiated, is sparring, effectively, right? So I did 2.5 hours on Sunday of sparring. It was 100 rounds, shorter than normal in tournament, because tournament is 2 minutes and these were 30 seconds or so. But 100 rounds, and I think I sparred against about 60 or 70 different people of varying grades. And I went in there with a bit of an injury on one leg and a bit of an injury on the other. They weirdly didn't get any worse, which is good, but I've come away with several blisters, a blood blister, the entirety of my left big toe, like the whole toe is just a blister. I've pulled both of my traps from being up in a guard for 2 hours. It was a great day. It was brilliant fun. But
so are you still feeling the original injuries, or have they paled into insignificance compared to the new ones?
Yeah, this whole combat sport malarkey is an exercise in injury management when you're in your 30s, I think.
It'll get more so as you progress into your 40s, 50s and beyond. Anyway, we're not here to talk about your karate career, interesting as that is. Let me introduce today's returning guest, AWS hero, Danielle Heberling. How are you doing today, Danielle?
Hey, y'all. Yeah, thanks for having me, John and Carl. Great to be back.
You're very welcome. Great to have you back. So are you a martial artist on the weekends? Or?
Definitely not. Yeah, I just hung out around my house and watched the Olympics and then the Super Bowl all weekend. So very couch potato-y weekend.
Yeah, controversial though, the Super Bowl. Mr. Trump was not impressed, was he, with the halftime Spanish act? So I heard in the news.
Yeah, it kind of makes me want to go back to Puerto Rico, honestly. I just finished up, I was just telling John before the show, or Carl before the show, I just finished up working at a company that was based in Puerto Rico. So I got to go down there quite a bit. It's a really cool island. Great time.
Never been, seen it on TV. Maybe one day I'll get to go there. So tell us a bit about what you've been doing since you last on as a guest and since you've moved on from the Puerto Rico role.
Yeah, definitely. So now I'm working for an older, kind of more enterprisey type of company. We build software for a lot of parks in Canada and the US. So if you visit a park or like rent a campground, there's a very high chance that you are going through software that my company has touched. But yeah, all on moving towards AWS. They have a mixture of stuff that's like on premises. But yeah, we're kind of moving more towards like a more modern cloud native, all those buzzwords type of thing. But yeah, really excited for the opportunity and to work at scale with actual users. And yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
Actual users?
You mentioned a few buzzwords there, Danielle, but you didn't mention AI. Is there any AI in what you're building? Or are you just building it with AI?
There has been some discussion about it, but they're actually being super pragmatic about it, which I really appreciate. But also, yeah, we have a budget for $200 a month if we want to get Claude Code Max, and it's not like mandated or anything, but it's encouraged. So I very much take advantage of building with that, and especially with the AWS MCPs, like if you hook that up to Claude Code, like it's gotten pretty good.
Not Kiro, Splitter.
I do use Kiro a little bit, but yeah, lately I've been a little more into Claude Code. So
what's Claude Code Max? I've heard Claude Code mentioned many times. Is that just like the top level package, or what's the max element?
Yeah, it's got higher limits. There truly is no like fully unlimited, because as you know, this does not get cheaper at scale. But yeah, like with the lower, because like I like the pro tier that they call it, and like you just get to the point where they're like, you ran out of time in your session, you got to wait for 4 more hours for it to reset. That happens a lot less when you're on the max plan, but they also happily charge you more money for it, you know?
Of course, somebody's got to pay for all these data centers that are being built all over the world, and all these GPUs that are being purchased, etc. So
Yeah, being purchased so I can't buy them.
To play karate games on your computer.
No, Star Wars games. Karate is one of the few things I know how to do in real life.
Yeah. Well, Star Wars, we may come back to that when we talk about our final article for this week, but let's begin at the beginning, as they say. As regular listeners to the podcast will know, we're not here to talk about karate or space, although we will talk a little bit about space later. We are here to talk about AWS news. Once a week, I curate a list of AWS news I share via my weekly AWS News Roundup newsletter. And then John picks a selection of the articles from the newsletter, shares them with our guest, and we talk about them. So let's pick on the first article for this week. This is a roundup. It's the serverless ICYMI, or in case you missed it, from Q4 2025 by Julian Wood. Has Julian been on the podcast? I can't remember.
No, he's been down to the user group a handful of times, and we keep running into him at events. It's one of those. Well, I think reInvent 24, we bumped into him randomly about 10 times. Okay.
And he was at that conference in Brighton last year that we did. That we're doing again this year, the Evolve Tech Conference. So, so we need to get Julian on the show. Anyway, this is a post on the AWS Compute blog, serverless in case you missed it, by Julian Wood. So, what did we miss, John, in Q4 2025 about serverless?
Well, I don't think we missed any of these, interestingly. I think we've spoken about every single thing in this roundup, which is rare for us. But I don't know, I bias into serverless, and I've gone through a bit of a renaissance. As I still bias into serverless, but now instead of biasing away from AI, I kind of just lean into the curve, I think, because you can't not. But I think we've spoken about all of these before. So just quickly rattling through them. It's Lambda durable functions, Lambda managed instances, or as Brian coined the term, I think, last week, Lambda heavy, I thought was brilliant. There's some other bits and pieces around provision mode for SQS, increasing payloads, IPv6 mapping. So IPv6 networking, I don't think I talked about that, but that's boring. ECS express mode, which I think we've spoken about as well. Something about API gateway, which we didn't talk about, and various other bits and pieces as well. So there's been quite a lot actually in Q4. I mean, that kind of makes sense, reInvents in Q4. But there's been quite a lot here, and we did talk about quite a lot of it already, which is rare for us, I think. My top one for this, and then I'll let everyone else speak in a minute because I think it's quite interesting, it's the durable functions, to be really honest, because for me, that just obviates quite a lot of other orchestration things that you need to do for getting round things like 15-minute timeouts and what have you. That obviates that, because I've done that a few times where I've had weird sort of call and response patterns, and you have to put a step function in place or have to put weird retries in just to kind of get around this somewhat weird restriction. So that, it's not a game changer, but it's a very nice quality of life improvement.
What are your thoughts, Danielle? You're a serverless hero, are you not? You a hero in the serverless category?
Yeah, I am a serverless hero. Actually, maybe side quest, but regarding Julian, I got this from Eric Johnson. He's like doing branded merch, but also shout out to Logicast there.
Oh, nice. Got the Captain Cloud logo on there. Good to see. Yeah.
But,
do love a bit of sticker bombing.
Yeah. I found water bottles are perfect for that. So,
well, I would pick up my laptop and show it to you, but then everything would disconnect. So it's probably not a good idea.
Didn't you sticker bomb a lamppost outside somewhere in Barcelona?
I sticker bombed lots of Barcelona. Yes.
But anyway, back to the article. None of this was really like new to me. I do think like the IPv6 is, it's boring, but it's great to maybe have a NAT gateway less future. So that's kind of what's exciting to me about that. But yeah, for me, I would definitely have to say the durable functions as well, just because it's like, how many times have you been, querying an API that just has like a really big response, and then it's like, then you spin up a step function to orchestrate with pagination, and I don't know. To me, that felt a little heavy. So being able to just do it straight in a durable function seems nicer.
Yeah.
The other thing that's exciting too is I don't think a lot of people are talking about this, but like the managed instances for Lambda, I believe it has like a different concurrency model. So like a single, instance of that can take multiple concurrent requests. That seems interesting to me as well.
Yeah, you have to work. I think you have to work slightly differently. In the same way that you do with durable functions, you have to account for the kit that you're sitting on a little bit, which is why I find it confusing. I love the term Lambda heavy because I think that's just the best description ever. But yeah, it's an odd one. It's an odd one.
Yeah, well, I was confused by this because to me it sounds like servers for serverless.
I mean, they do run on them, just
Yeah, I know. But, it feels like it's making serverless slightly less serverless and slightly more servers. But yeah,
I haven't gone and played with it. It's dedicated capacity from your own account in your own VPC, but you don't see the servers, you don't get to them. So it's more Fargate-y than anything else, or sort of RDS flavor. It's still running in your environment and it's taking your IP ranges and all this schmoo, but you're still not actually having to patch the servers. So it's in this, there's a weird kind of gray scale blend going on. From you used to have this really hard line divides between this is infrastructure, it's some servers, they're not real, they're virtual, but you have to look after them, that's your problem. And then these are servers that exist but you can't see them, and we'll look after them, and you don't worry about servers existing at all, they're over there, they're your problem. And now there's this general blend between them where you start to have services that were very firmly in one thing starting to sit in other ones as well.
But does it scale to zero? Do you have to pay for your managed instances to exist whether you're using them or not? I guess if you have a use case for managed instances, there's probably not going to be a case where you're not using them. But
yeah, there is like a baseline charge. I forget exactly what it is, but yeah, the naming is super confusing, and I just hope that it doesn't confuse other people. I mean, there's like even Fargate managed instances now too, and it's just
there's Fargate Spot, which confuses the hell out of me.
That too, yeah.
And ECS managed instances as well. But
Fargate managed instances, yeah.
We like complexity because that's what we're here to solve for people. So it's don't make it too simple, AWS. Put us all out.
No, but if you can stop making things more complicated between now and when I have to renew my DevOps Pro cert, that would be great.
Yeah, but they won't be changing the exam between now and then, I wouldn't have thought. None of this stuff will be in the exam unless they have a major exam update because it's all too new. So you probably
I best go and do it quick then.
Yes, that's kind of what I was intimating there. But
I'm pretending that it's not a problem until after the London Summit, at which point I'll have to go and cram and do it.
Maybe you can do it at the London Summit. Do they still do that? Can you go and do exams?
You can do them at I don't think you can do them at the Summit. There's definitely the last couple of years there were definitely prep sessions that you could go and do, because I know that one of our colleagues went and did that one year. But for me, I don't really feel I get value out of doing that sort of thing. Yeah, it's a learning conference, but it's hallway track generally I find more valuable, as they call it.
Yeah, you can take that exam at home or at a testing center by your home.
Not if your office looks like mine. The bit that you can see looks very tidy because all the mess is on the other side. So I've got lots of books in here and things on the wall and everything else. And it's just, for me, it's not worth the effort to strip everything down to pass the room scan before the exam. It's just easier to go to a test center, frankly.
I flat refuse to put that spyware on my computer that they enforce so that they can know what you're doing. I flat refuse.
Yeah. I didn't have that. I did do one during COVID that way, but I've just got too much stuff in my room to
just get a burner computer for your exams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like the spyware either, John. I agree.
A burner computer and a white box to sit inside or something, so they can't see any clocks on the wall or anything like that. Anyway, we are straying off topic as we often do, but let's wrap up on the serverless in case you missed it and move on to our second article for this week. And this is an article on the AWS database blog, and the title is Amazon DynamoDB Global Tables now supports replication across AWS accounts. I think we spoke about this on an earlier episode as well, did we not, John?
No, it was Event Bridge that we spoke about doing exactly this.
Cross account replication. Yeah. So, well, let's talk about DynamoDB Global Tables replicating across AWS accounts. So, John.
This is an interesting one for me because I can think of precisely one use case for this, but there must have been more than one for them to actually go off and build it because it's awkward. So let's do some definitions because I haven't done that for a while. DynamoDB, NoSQL service, brilliant. I like it. It's great. It's cheap. It works. It does what it needs to do. Wonderful. Global tables, and it says this here is a fully managed multi-region, multi-active database feature that provides seamless data replication, local read and write performance, a globally scaled application. Blah, 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 blah. Spit your teeth out. The short version is you have an DynamoDB table, and it can just magically be in lots of regions at the same time through witchcraft, I think through the same backbone that distributed SQL is using, but functionally it's witchcraft and very fast hamsters as far as I'm concerned. Magic electric pixies. That was stuck, however, within your one account, which kind of makes sense because accounts are a hard boundary between things. At least until quite recently, there were very firm, hard-line boundaries between things, and you had to work very, very hard to punch holes in those boundaries for things like resource policies. S3 buckets being a good example, right? Doing cross-account stuff in S3 is painful, and I don't think that's a bad thing. You have to work very hard to punch holes in these account-level boundaries, and that's a good thing. However, the walls are coming down, as it were. And that's a bit of a 90s reference, but we're not going to go on about walls. But the walls are coming down a little bit. What this is doing is it's a different type of model, but they are deployed across multiple AWS accounts sitting in a replication group. Cool, wonderful. They're fast local writes, async replication, last writer wins, conflict resolution, which is very much whoever gets there at the end just blats the thing. Okay, as long as you know that's what's going on, that's okay. But there are slightly different consistency models. So multi-account is eventually consistent, which you sort of expect that to be because there's a bit more replication going on. I can think of, I said one, I think there's two kind of models where this is necessary. The first is DR, but into a different account rather than to a different region. And it calls that out in the article. And the other is something like data lake style work where you have a lake or a lake house or a lake ingest account or something like that. And that's in a different account to where your workloads are because it should be. And you don't have to put complicated bits of Lambda plumbing and SQS and Event Bridge and whatever in the middle of it to pull data out off of streams and triggers and all that schmoo and chucking it into another account. So that's kind of two use cases. But that's an awful lot of work for what I can think of fairly minor use cases. So I don't quite understand.
Danielle, you got any other use cases that John didn't already outline?
Oh, I wonder if maybe if you have like multiple pre-prod accounts and you just need to like periodically like populate data, if you could use that, you know, like if you have like a staging and a dev, you know, obviously not prod, but prod like data, if that would work. Maybe. Yeah, I don't see myself using this. Yeah, most of the DR stuff that I've done has just been in another region, but it's definitely got a use case for someone if they've released it. So
this is one of those things. We've had this conversation with several people at AWS, and we've been told in no uncertain terms, more than one person will have asked for this. It's never a case of just what I call hippo logic, highest paid person's opinion. It's never just one well-paying customer that's asked for a thing. This has been lots of people have clearly asked for this for one reason or another, or it's come up in a service team's roadmap somewhere as something that would be useful. And as I say, I can see the utility of it, and they do call out a few use cases here. So DR is one. There's another, moving tables between AWS accounts if you need to do that. Which, okay, I suppose. And then, as I say, the third one is this data lake house sort of setup fine, wonderful. They're all variations on the same theme, which is just data is here and I need it over there. And this reduces the, to use an AWS term, undifferentiated heavy lifting you need to do to get it there. But the lifting to do it weren't that heavy, if we're honest. It was sub a Lambda to a stream, write everything out to a queue somewhere, and then pull it into another table. It wasn't huge amounts of work. So I don't quite understand the driver. The technology is fantastic. It's really interesting, and the fight that they will have had with physics behind the scenes to make this sort of thing work is phenomenal. But I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, like the cross-account boundary does exist for a reason. So yeah, I tend to agree with you on that, John. But obviously, it's probably going to be useful to someone. So,
do you think it introduces any kind of security risks, given that the account boundary is generally considered, as John said, a hard boundary, as a kind of contained blast radius? Is there any kind of risk of compromise with these kind of cross-account services, do you think?
Yeah, there's lots of sort of head wobbling going on for that answer. I don't see it being a real issue because it's something very specific. If it was like an ingest service that was then automatically replicating everywhere, then yes, I could see that being a problem. But for a data storage platform, I don't see it being a concern. I do see it being a conversation you might have to have with your CISO, though.
Well, there we are. If you do need to replicate Amazon DynamoDB tables across AWS accounts, they've made it easier for you to do it. So let's move on to our third article for this week. This is an article, a feature announcement that Amazon EC2 and VPC now display related resources for security groups. So Danielle, I'll come to you first on this one, so John doesn't say everything that there is to say about it before you have an opportunity to. But what are your thoughts on this new feature that was announced last week?
Yeah, I'll admit that aside from reading this article, I have not looked at it yet. I'm assuming it might be useful, though, because in some cases, like there's people that have very complicated security group roles to be able to see that in the console. But I can't speak to like how nice it is because I have not looked at it yet. I try to do mostly serverless and stay out of VPCs as much as I can.
You still need them, though, don't you? For
a
lot of the serverless
stuff. Like compliancy things or RDS. I mean, you don't want that in a public subnet, but
yeah, where's that Lambda running? Somewhere
in the cloud.
The cloud. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. What about you, John? What are your thoughts on this? Any sort of interesting use cases?
I mean, they call it out. This is a really useful feature if you are a poor sap like me and the people that work for me, with me, for us. I don't know what our corporate structure is these days. But for people what work with these things, it's quite useful because there's a lot of services that aren't EC2 that use EC2 security groups. I'm thinking it calls out RDS, right? But that's just kind of the first example. You've got RDS, you've got Lambda if they're in VPCs, you've got other flavors of databases, you've got other flavors of things that I wouldn't call a database that are technically databases, thinking Elasticache, Memcached, these sorts of things. A whole heap of basically anything that might possibly sit in a VPC can and should have a security group attached to it. Wonderful. That was quite painful in a few cases to work out what was allowing what to talk to what, because you had to go RDS console, as an example, right? RDS console, it's in this security group. Go and look that security group rules up. Go and find it, and you had 3 or 4 pages, and all of a sudden you're going down this big rabbit hole of spreadsheets. Which my solution has been to buy an enormously wide monitor so I can just look at them all on one screen. But for those of you that aren't blessed with, eyes like a lizard, you can sort of do that with them. This is quite useful because you can go, here's everything in one place. And that makes life a lot easier. It's just a nice quality of life improvement for what I've taken to calling operators of the platform.
Are you blessed with eyes like a lizard?
No, I specifically buy my monitors with the right curvature so that I can just sort of see it all in one place. Yes, I
I was
looked
going to
that
say
up.
it's not a party trick of yours that I'd seen yet. I was intrigued if we might get to see that at the next company social. John's lizard eye
No,
impression.
the only party trick I can pull out is pistol squats, and I can only do about 2 of those. So
I'm not going to ask you to demonstrate that now because I don't think the aspect ratio of your camera will allow it. So, yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, a nice little feature. Save operators a little bit of time when making security group updates. Let's skip on to our fourth article for this week. It's an article on the AWS News blog, all about the fact that IAM Identity Center now supports multi-region replication for AWS account access and application use. So, John, what was it that caught your eye about this particular article?
that I don't understand this, really.
Do
I
you
don't
understand it
this.
anymore after having read Channy's article?
That would imply that I've read it. I'm very open about the fact that all of these articles are picked on the basis that I can probably talk about them without really reading them. So,
But you did get probably in there, so maybe you can't talk about this one.
yeah, maybe not. So, the short version of what I think this is doing, right, is IAM Identity Center for the uninitiated used to be called AWS Single Sign-On, because that was a sensible name, and then they renamed it to something ridiculous. But all of the permission models, if you go and look at the IAM policies, still say SSO and SSO directory, because they changed the public-facing name and the display name, but not what it's called behind the scenes. So it's still SSO. Okay, thanks. But what it does, certainly for account level access, was you logged into one place and you got a list of all of the various accounts and the various permissions that you had, and you could log in through that interface. Wonderful. What did that do? Why was that good? Well, single sign-on kind of told you what it was doing. You logged in once and then you got temporary credentials into the relevant places, right? And you could do that via the console, or you could do that via the CLI. And a whole bunch of tools came out to help you kind of take advantage of that, so that you could just get some time limited creds without having to have lots of really annoying IAM users in lots of different accounts in lots of different places. And you didn't have to do things like role chaining and all this malarkey. It just made life a lot easier. Wonderful. I still don't fully understand what IAM IDC does for application access, but I assume it's much the same if you build an application that you deliver through the AWS console, which I've never done, so I can't really speak to it. But again, you log into the same place. You've got your accounts that you can see. You've got your applications that you can see. Wonderful. This is one of those services that it's a regional service because it's got to live somewhere, and you just give it a home region. So for our customers, we tend to put it in either US East 1, because that's weirdly where a lot of our customers want to put things, or in EU West 2, because again, European mainland people kind of want to put things in London or Europe or whatever, and that's kind of a good one to do it, because I'm not putting things in Frankfurt or Stockholm. They're too expensive. So we put them in, West 2, sometimes West 1, but not often, and US East 1. Great. And then you've logged in, and then you can just change region when you're in the console. What this is doing, and I think it's something, it feels like it's in the wake of some of the instability that's been seen in US East 1 of late, wherein you can actually replicate your IAM IDC configuration out of your home region and into another one. Wonderful. I don't really understand if there's any fees associated with this as yet, but the short version is, why do you want to do that? Well, if the region that you use to log in goes down, this service in this region goes down, but you happen to have workloads in other places, or it's only that service that's gone down, and say EC2 is still running, because it's very possible that it will be, you can't get in and do anything because you're blocked from logging in. However, if you've replicated your login to another region that you're able to operate in, you can still log in via your backup login. I can see this being a good thing. I say I don't get it. I kind of get one very specific utility for this, in that you no longer need to have this concept of a break glass IAM user or someone with the root creds still hanging around and your secure token in a locker and all this jazz, because it's just replicated somewhere else. And it's highly, highly unlikely that more than one region is going to have a problem with the service at the same time. So maybe you can't make any changes whilst there's an outage going on, but you can still log in and operate again, it's an operator feature. You can still go in and operate your workloads if you need to, because that one service is having an issue. The rest of them probably aren't. Cool. This affects landing zone designs a little bit, but beyond that, it's not really a big thing. But they talk about it for DR, they talk about it for compliance. And yeah, as I say, I can see this being useful in terms of getting rid of that annoying hangover legacy break glass setup. I mean, we have this wherein we have federated IAM in a few key accounts for some of our customers, which links back to one of our accounts, which has long-lived IAM users in it still, which is naughty and you shouldn't do that. But it was one of those, just in case the whole thing keels over in a couple of regions, we still need a way to get in. So this goes some way to stopping that from being needed, which is good, I suppose.
No cost to use it either. What are your thoughts, Danielle?
Yeah, I feel like the only use case that I could think of would be instability of AWS, like US East 1. That was kind of the first thing that I had thought of. But yeah, I mean, as an operator, I mean, I could see that being useful, just because then you're not having to copy like all your, users and groups and all that. But yeah, definitely at work, IAM Identity Center all the way. And I'm a big fan of, this is going to sound cold, but I really don't mean it this way, but it's just like, it's very much a security thing when someone leaves the company. So it's really important to have a quick way where you can just turn off their access to everything. And IAM Identity Center, especially if you're like connecting it through like, Google Workspaces or something like that, you just have to deactivate that account and then all their AWS access is lost. Huge fan of it for that reason. But yeah, I don't really see myself using this unless I like have to for compliance or something. But I do believe it's free. So the other thought that I had was like, it doesn't really affect any of us, but like the European sovereign cloud thing that they just launched, like, do they have Identity Center on that and region replication? Because it would have
so
to stay
they
in the
do,
EU,
but
right?
that's completely different. So sovereign cloud, you as a normal user, you've created an AWS account within just normal AWS. You can't use sovereign cloud with that account. It sits in a completely isolated partition. So when you sign up for a new AWS account, you have to say, I'm using sovereign cloud or I want normal AWS.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's kind of like GovCloud then, like a whole separate.
Effectively, yeah. That's kind of the idea.
But does it have multiple regions?
No, not currently. I think the idea is it will eventually, because at the minute
GovCloud does, doesn't it?
GovCloud, US GovCloud has a couple, yes, but sovereign cloud, no. It will eventually, I imagine. But building data centers takes time.
It does. Yeah, it does, and lots of money.
I mean, that's one thing that Amazon does have a fair amount of.
Or local government subsidies. I live in Hillsboro, Oregon, and they have data centers all over the place here. And there's a lot of people locally that are, getting political about it because they are using up a lot of our resources. Like my electric bill has gotten a lot higher and things like that. So I feel kind of mixed on it because from a tech standpoint, it's great. But from my bills are more expensive. And also these companies building these data centers are getting very sweetheart deals. And if I have to pay taxes, they should have to pay taxes. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's all wonderful, but not in my backyard, as they say. So, which is a lovely segue, in fact, into our final article of where we may be able to put data centers in nobody's backyard. This is an article on Reuters, and I promise we'd talk about space. This is an article on Reuters. The title is Amazon's AWS CEO calls orbital data centers pretty far from reality. I think it was Elon Musk that had gone on record recently talking about plans to put data centers in space, and I can't imagine that there's many space residents who would have anything to say about that.
Well, there's only 6 of them.
Yeah, exactly. So so long as it's sort of directly opposite them, so they can't see it in terms of the orbit, an Antipodean orbit for the data centers relative to the International Space Station, then nobody's going to complain, I guess. But what do you think about this one, Danielle? Data centers in space? Do you think we'll see that in our lifetime?
I do not. At the very least, maybe on the moon, but I mean, those rockets are pretty tiny, as the article hints at, and that's what I tend to agree with, is like putting all that hardware up there, and then when you need to swap things out, and then I don't know, like, is their plan to maintain it, have a bunch of like robots or like actual humans? Because then that's kind of like the Apple TV show For All Mankind style of like people living on the moon. And yeah, great show if y'all haven't seen it, but side quest there. Yeah, personally, I don't see it happening. I love the idea just because we're already destroying the earth a lot more than we should be. And it's very much showing, in, people's medical conditions that are coming up and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't see it happening because it's going to be very expensive and just the logistics seem not possible.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because to get these things into space, having them in space is probably quite good for the environment. Getting them to space is probably not.
Yeah.
Considering the amount of metal that's going to have to be lifted through gravity and out of the Earth's atmosphere to make this happen. And yes, it is an awful long way to go to change a hard drive when it fails.
This is where I'm a little bit more optimistic, and it's not just because I'm a space nerd, because I'm a nerd about a lot of things, but one of them is space. Because I was a young boy once, and space rockets are cool. So Microsoft a number of years ago now did a data center sort of capsule under the sea off the coast of Scotland. And they ran that for a few years, and it was just kind of a trial. It wasn't that far off the coast. It was reasonably easy to get to, but it was a sealed unit, right? They filled it with pressurized nitrogen, did all the cooling so that it would just vent its heat directly through the shell of the thing out into the local environment. Okay, bad for the fish, but there's no fish in Scotland that you want to care about anyway, so let's move on from that. There's nothing in that particular bit of coast. There's nothing interesting there, so it's a good place to put it. Wonderful. And what they found was that the failure rates, in spite of the fact that you couldn't just go and lift it up and swap a drive out, was significantly lower to the point where you kind of didn't need to worry about them because it was all pressurized nitrogen and no one was fiddling with it and there was no one breathing moist air all over it and all the rest of it. It was a very controlled environment. Wonderful. Space data centers would probably be quite similar, as in you put them there and you leave them alone. They are there and you use them until they are done and then you get rid of them again. That's a different problem, but we'll get to that in a minute. The lift cost is prohibitive. That's the problem right now, right? And we haven't done the whole underwater data center thing, but it's going to be the same concept. The last time I looked, it's $1 million per pound of weight to put something in space. $1 million a pound. And I know that because NASA is an American organization. Obviously, they work in dollars and pounds rather than, euros and kilograms. It's how many dollars per freedom units can we work with here rather than something sensible. Fun fact, that's why Mars rover crashed once, was because NASA did it in inches and the ESA did it in millimeters and they didn't tell each other. So stuff didn't work. Yeah. Fun fact. But yeah, so the lift cost is prohibitive. That's kind of the problem. And yes, again, this is another one where you have to punch physics in the face just to get things up into space. Because, $1 million a pound, loads and loads and loads of fuel, 17,500 miles an hour to get up there and all the rest of it. Ridiculous speed. Cool. Once it's there, you have to worry about, I forget the exact name of it, but there's a cascade effect going on. There was a film about it involving George Clooney and Sandra Bullock where everything just started crashing into everything else and everything ended. That's actually already happening. It's just not Hollywood film worthy because it's really, really slow. It's not, happen in a weekend sort of territory and everything ends. It's already happening, but it's very slow. There's a lot of crap up there from launches, from things that we've left up there, from dead satellites that haven't been dealt with, to the point where Elon, amongst other people, have come up with suggestions on how to deal with these things, some more sensible than others. Elon's idea, and I'm not a big fan of the man, but it was a reasonable idea. CubeSats, grab the thing, deorbit, keep going. That doesn't solve for the whole burning loads of dead dinosaur bones to actually get there in the first place, but it's a way of dealing with that problem. But that's going to be another issue for space-based data centers, right? Because you're going to have to think about orbits that you put them in, where you leave them, how you talk to them. If you put it in geostationary, there's a lot out there already, and stuff's just going to crash into them all the time. And if you look at the cupola module, they do some pictures of this of the ISS. Occasionally they say, oh yeah, that was a paint fleck that hit us at 4,000 meters a second. And it's left an impact like about this big from a paint fleck that's a millimeter, because it's doing silly big speeds. So there's a lot of things to work out to make this work, to the point where, is it realistic? Probably not now. Are these problems solvable? Yes. Do I think we'll put things on the moon first? No. Honestly, no. Because there's no... And anything to do with the moon is more political will than technical capability, and there just isn't the will for it. Do I think we'll put things on Mars before we do that? Yeah, maybe, actually, because that's a whole other planet, get to the planet and all that jazz. So maybe that'll happen. I'd love to see it, though. Here, end of space rant.
Well, Google claim, I know it's an AWS podcast, but the article does mention that Google announced in November that their project Suncatcher, which is an orbital data center project, could have test launches as soon as next year. I don't know if that's this year because they announced it in November, but this article is dated this year. So maybe 2027, Google could have test launches. So, yeah.
There's an awful lot
Google?
of things there's an awful lot of things you have to do to even get permission to put things in space these days. There's a lot that you have to do.
Do you think they might just be asking for forgiveness rather than permission?
Unless
entrepreneurial
Google
flair.
Unless Google has come up with a rocket company that I don't know about, probably not. Like, there's only a handful, right? There's Daddy Bezos' penis rocket, but they don't call them
Blue Orbit,
Blue Origin.
Blue Origin. Sorry,
There's Elon's SpaceX, NASA still technically. The ESA occasionally do some things. There's one from New Zealand whose name escapes me, and a few others are being worked on.
India, one, I think, like Virgin, isn't he?
Virgin Galactic's dead. It's dead.
Okay, not anymore.
No.
Didn't India send a rocket up last year?
Oh, yes, they did. And we railed about that because we also send them aid money as a country. The UK does. Like, you've got a space program, and yet we're giving you money to help fight local poverty. I think that makes sense.
Different
but yes,
district,
yeah, it's a big enough country. But yes, the number of countries and then private enterprises on top of that are able to put things into space is quite a small list.
I guess you've got to question how effective these things are going to be from day one, because you look at the size of the data centers that I'm sure you've seen in your backyard, Danielle. They are enormous. So to get anything like that into space, and you think the rate that they are being built, you know, that everything that's being built on Earth right now is enormous. I don't know if the listeners have ever been around any of these data center campuses, but they are vast. And, you know, to get something like that into space, well, yeah, we simply don't have the technology right now, I guess. So whatever does go up there, I guess, is going to be fairly minimal.
Well, like a lot of them are tied together by cables in good old Earth. So like a cable-less from, up in space, like that seems like another problem because you probably can't get as strong of a signal. But maybe I'm uneducated on that, John.
This is the sort of thing that you would have to build current tech in space because the lift capacity isn't there, and I don't think it will ever be there. You'd have to build it in bits in space. I mean, the ISS was built in space in modules.
True, yeah.
But comms wise, the satellite, Earth to satellite connectivity is getting better. With Elon, what's the Elon service called?
Starlink.
Starlink, that's the one.
If nothing else, the man knows how to name things.
Yeah, well, and Amazon, they had Project Kuiper, didn't they? And they've changed the name of it now, haven't they? I forget what they changed it to.
Leo, yeah.
Leo, there we go. Low Earth orbit, that's right. Yeah, so that's their competitor to Starlink. So, the comms are getting better. So, in the amount of time it's going to take to get these things built up there, then I'm sure further improvements will be made. But anyway, doesn't really affect what we're doing in AWS on a day-to-day basis that much, but just
it would really be in the cloud.
Point. Will it be above them? There are no clouds in space.
Yeah, that's true.
Not unless something cute that shouldn't be. But, yeah.
There are clouds in space. We just call them nebula.
We just don't talk about them.
Indeed. But on that note, talking about space, we have reached the end of our time for Logicast season 5 episode 6. I think I really should write these things down in front of me so to remind myself, but we have reached the end of our time for season 5 episode 6. So just remains for me to thank you, Danielle, for coming along for I believe the third time, joining us as our guest and sharing your insights. It's been great to chat with you again. And John, as always, good to hear about your weekend karate exploits and your views on the latest AWS news and space exploration. So what other podcast is covering all of those things in a single episode. Value for money here, and it's free as well.
Spin-off podcast here about space, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. Lego, maybe space Lego. There's another podcast, but yeah. Anyway, if you have enjoyed the podcast, please do tell your friends. If you've listened this far, you've enjoyed it, please give us a rating, give us a like. Follow us on YouTube if you'd like to see the funny faces we're pulling and the injuries that John has contracted in his chosen weekend exploits. We will be back next week with another episode of Logicast for you. Until then, thank you very much for listening, and see you again next time.